I'm Jimmy. Today's day 188 of reading. Today we're reading Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Let's get started. We're on page 348. Lupin moved closer to Ron. He seemed to be holding his breath as he gazed intently at Scabbers. "What?" said Ron again. He's holding Scabbers close to him, looking scared. "What's my rat got to do with anything?" "That's not a rat," croaked Sirius Black suddenly. "What do you mean?" "Of course he's a rat." "No, he's not," said Lupin quietly. "He's a wizard. An animagus," said Black, "by the name of Peter Pettigrew." Chapter 18. Moony, Wormtail, Patfoot, and Prongs. It took a few seconds for the absurdity of this statement to sink in. Then Ron voiced what Harry was thinking. "You're both mental." "Ridiculous," said Hermione faintly. "Peter Pettigrew's dead," said Harry. "He killed him 12 years ago." He pointed at Black, whose face twitched convulsively. "I meant to," he growled, his yellow teeth bared. "But little Peter got the better of me. Not this time, though." And Crookshanks was thrown to the floor as Black lunged at Scabbers. Ron yelled with pain as Black's weight fell on his broken leg. "Cyrus, no!" Lupin yelled, launching himself forward and dragging Black away from Ron again. "Wait, you can't just do it like that. They need to understand. We've got to explain. We can explain afterwards," snarled Black, trying to throw Lupin off. One hand was still clawing the air as it tried to reach Scabbers, who was squealing like a piglet, scratching Ron's face and neck as he tried to escape. "They've got a right to know everything," Lupin panted, still trying to restrain Black. "Ron's kept him as a pet. There are parts of it even I don't understand. And Harry, you will Harry the truth. Cyrus." Black stopped struggling, though his hollowed eyes were still fixed on Scabbers, who was clamped tightly under Ron's bitten, scratched, and bleeding hand. "All right, then," Black said, without taking his eyes off the rat. "Tell them whatever you like. But make it quick, Remus. I want to commit the murder I was imprisoned for." "You're nutters, both of you," said Ron shakily, looking round at Harry and Hermione for support. "I've had enough of this. I'm off." He tried to heave him up on his good leg, but Lupin raised his one again, pointing it at Scabbers. "You're going to hear me out, Ron," he said quietly. "Just keep a tight hold on Peter while you listen." "He's not Peter, he's Scabbers!" Ron yelled, trying to force the rat back into his front pocket. But Scabbers was fighting too hard. Ron swayed and overbalanced, and Harry caught him and pushed him back down to the bed. Then, ignoring Black, Harry turned to Lupin. "There were witnesses who saw Peter Pettigrew die," he said, "a whole street full of them. They didn't see what they thought they saw," said Black savagely, still watching Scabbers struggling in Ron's hand. "Everyone thought Cyrus killed Peter. I believed it myself, until I saw the map tonight, because the modern map never lies. Peter's alive. Ron's holding him, Harry." Harry looked down at Ron, and as their eyes met, they agreed, silently. Black and Lupin were both out of their minds. Their story made no sense whatsoever. How could Scabbers be Peter Pettigrew? Azkaban must have unhinged Black after all. But why was Lupin playing along with him? Then Hermione spoke, in a trembling, would-be calm sort of voice, as though trying to will Professor Lupin to talk sensibly. "But, Professor Lupin, Scabbers can't be Pettigrew. It just can't be true. You know it can't." "Why can't it be true?" Lupin said calmly, as though they were in class, and Hermione had simply spotted a problem in an experiment with Grindylows. Because people would know if Peter Pettigrew had been an animagus. We did animagy class with Professor McGonagall. I looked them up when I did my homework. The Ministry of Magic keeps tabs on witches and wizards who can become animals. There's a register showing what animal they become and their markings and things. And I went and looked Professor McGonagall up on the register. And there have only been 7 Animagi this century, and Pettigrew's name wasn't on the list. Harry had barely had time to marvel inwardly at the effort Hermione put into her homework when Lupin started to laugh. Right again, Hermione, but the Ministry never knew that there used to be 3 unregistered Animagi running around in Hogwarts. If you're going to tell them the story, get a move on, Remus, snarled Black, who was still watching Scabbers' every desperate move. I've waited 12 years. I'm not going to wait much longer. All right, but you'll need to help me, Cyrus, said Lupin. I only know how it began. Lupin broke off. There had been a loud creak behind him. The bedroom door had opened off of its own accord. All 5 of them stared at it. Then Lupin strode toward it and looked out into the landing. No one's there. This place is haunted, said Ron. It's not, said Lupin, still looking at the door in a puzzled way. The Shrieking Shack was never haunted. The screams and howls the villagers used to hear were made by me. He pushed his graying hair out of his eyes, thought for a moment, then said, That's where all of this starts, with my becoming a werewolf. None of this could have happened if I hadn't been bitten, and if I hadn't been so foolhardy. It looked rather sober and tired. Ron started to interrupt, but Hermione said, Shh! She was watching Lupin very intently. I was a very small boy when I received the bite. My parents tried everything, but in those days there were no cure. The potion that Professor Snape has been making for me is a very recent discovery. It makes me safe, you see, as long as I take it in the week preceding the full moon. I keep my mind when I'm transformed. I'm able to curl up in my office, a harmless wolf, and wait for the moon to wane again. Before the Wolfsbane potion was discovered, however, I became a fully fledged monster once a month. It seemed impossible that I wouldn't be able to come to Hogwarts. Other parents weren't likely to want their children exposed to me. Well, then Dumbledore became headmaster, and he was sympathetic. He said that as long as we took certain precautions, there was no reason I shouldn't come to school. Lupin sighed and looked directly at Harry. I told you months ago that the Whomping Willow was planted the year I came to Hogwarts. The truth is, it was planted because I came to Hogwarts. This house, Lupin looked miserably around the room. The tunnel that leads to it, they were built for my use. Once a month, I was smuggled out of the castle into this place to transform. The tree was placed at the tunnel mouth to stop anyone from coming across me while I was dangerous. Harry couldn't see where this story was going, but he was listening raptly at the same. And the only sound apart from Lupin's voice was Scabbers' frightened squeaking. My transformations in those days were terrible. It is very painful to turn into a werewolf. I was separated from humans to bite, so I bit and scratched myself instead. The villagers heard the noise and the screaming and thought that they were hearing particularly violent spirits. Dumbledore encouraged the rumor. Even now, when the house has been silent for years, the villagers don't dare approach it. But apart from my transformations, I was happier than I had ever been in my life. For the first time ever, I had friends. 3 great friends. Cyrus Black, Peter Pettigrew, and, of course, your father, Harry, James Potter. Now, my 3 friends could hardly fail to notice that I disappeared once a month. I made up all sorts of stories. I told them my mother was ill and that I had to go home to see her. I was terrified they would desert me the moment they found out what I was. But of course, they, like you, Hermione, worked out the truth. And they didn't desert me at all. Said they did something for me that would make my transformations not only bearable, but the best times of my life. They became Animagi. My dad, too? Said Harry, astounded. Yes, indeed, said Lupin. It took them the best part of 3